to start, I've had the opportunity to chat with you before, Feifei, and I'd love to start by asking you about something you had told me, which I thought was kind of an aha moment. So you described computer vision as the killer app of AI, and I really liked that. And could you tell us why you see it that way?
Sure. First, good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here. So when we started talking about computer vision, my own academic or research history started in the field of vision. In fact, I started in the field of human vision, not computer vision, so before I entered AI. And it's incredible to recognize that in our human brain, more than half of the cortical cells, so which is the part of our human brain that's most unique to humans, are involved in visual processing. And this is an incredible recognition because if you think about nature and the process of evolution, nature knows what it's doing, right? So to devote 50% of the real estate in this most precious space in our brain for visual processing and visual intelligence, there must be a reason. And I think, and a lot of my colleagues would possibly agree, that there are two reasons for nature to do that. First is that it took 540 million years to evolve the visual system. So 540 million years ago, the first animal eye came to a very simple animal. It's like a little hole collecting light. And then nature keeps evolving this apparatus and all the back-end computation of the eye. And it's because it's such an important functionality. Animals and humans use vision to see, to navigate, to manipulate, to socialize, to understand the situation. So that's the first reason. It's a very important functionality. Second reason for nature to devote this much space to do vision is it's hard. I'm not going to dive into the mathematical problem of vision, but use a jargon, it's a mathematically ill-posed problem, meaning that we have a 3D world out there, but the imagery our eyes collect is a 2D imagery. So a lot of information needs to be reconstructed and inferred by our brain to understand what the world is. Mm-hmm. So vision is simultaneously incredibly important and incredibly challenging. And
then the applications are incredibly useful
right,
in AI as well.
Exactly. So in AI, I believe it's really a cornerstone of artificial intelligence.
What do you think will be the most significant impact that we'll see arise from computer vision? There's obviously a huge number of applications. What are you most excited about?
Oh, God, I have to say I do have a long list. So I think anything to do with robotics, from self-driving cars to robots will use vision as one of the most important sensing and perception function. And I think robotics has been with us for decades, but vision and the ability to perceive complex situation and know how to act in it will be a driving force for the future of robotics. Mm-hmm. On the internet, on the cyberspace, it was estimated more than 85% of the cyberspace data is in the form of pixels. So that means vision is a huge part of, visual data is a huge part of our digital space.
So photos and videos.
So photos and videos, and we're going to have a lot of IoT data coming in pixel form. So mm-hmm. both in the physical world as well as in the cyber world, vision will be critical.
So in the first panel that I was moderating, we were talking, Pedros Domingos was talking about this idea of AI on tap, so easily accessible, as easy as kind of flipping a switch or kind of pouring a cup of water. That's the vision. What is standing in the way, and how far is that from a reality today, do you think?
So that's a great vision. So first of all, AI is still a very young field. It's only about 60 years, right? It's remarkable to think about it. It started with the few men's dream of enabling machine intelligence, and today it's a driving force of the fourth industrial revolution and perhaps the biggest changes of human society. And so we are still very early in terms of developing AI and knowing how to use AI. So going from AI in the laboratories, where people like Pedro and myself develop machine learning algorithms, to the AI on tap or democratizing it to the mass, it's a process we just began for a few years. So there's a long way to go. Right now, where I sit in Google Cloud, it really, every day I wake up realizing how important it is to democratize this technology, to make it easily accessible to businesses and people, to lower the entry barrier. It's really true that the entry barrier of AI is still pretty high. A lot of companies are just beginning to hire their first set of data scientists, let alone machine learning experts, are just beginning to think about how to formulate their business needs into a machine learning or a data problem. So we're beginning that journey, but I think there's a lot of exciting things coming up in that.
One of the themes that really interests me as one looks at the landscape for AI vendors is how it seems like increasingly the cloud providers are going to compete directly with consultancies. Like consultants in the past have directed companies about how to navigate technological change. It seems like the cloud providers who have the technological know-how are increasingly going to be working very closely with companies, both in selling these tools and offering kind of custom advice. Do you think that will be true in the coming years? And how much customization work are these APIs and different AI tools going to require?
Yeah, so at Google, first of all, Google is an AI-first company, and Google Cloud, we absolutely are betting on AI. I think AI is going to be a huge part of our business and our strategy. And part of it is that even for myself personally, deciding to take the sabbatical to work at Google Cloud, it was really the recognition of the marriage of the cloud computing platform and the power of AI that is just so powerful. Cloud is the biggest computing platform humanity has ever invented, and it's reaching to the mass at a scale that we've never seen before, right? Google Cloud every day is touching lives of billions of users through our customers and their products and services. And so infusing AI into that platform and delivering that directly to our customers to enable their business is a natural and important step. So to answer the question of how much customization, we have a whole set of products at Google Cloud, and I think this probably speaks for other clouds as well, from APIs where you can do vision or translation or speech transcription and so on, all the way to sitting next to each other and working on specific problems with our specific partners. So that is a continuum or spectrum of generic solutions all the way to customized solutions. One of the most exciting products that we've rolled out earlier this year is Google's AutoML Vision alpha release. So the idea here is that if you want to tag your image as dog, chair, table, we have a Vision API that does it very well. It's a similar technology that works on your Google Photo and so on. But let's say you're an insurance company, you want to actually tag specific objects like cars and houses, or if you are a retailer that you care about your different logos and products, the generic Vision API is not enough for you. And you might not yet have the in-house ability to do your own model. So what AutoML delivers to you is a customized model based on your data and the concepts you need to label that is specifically trained for you and give to you to use for your specific use cases. But sitting under the hood is actually a couple of very, very cutting edge machine learning technique. One is transfer learning. Another one is what we are still ongoing developing called learning to learn. It's an automatic way of searching for an optimal model to do this kind of classification.
And so, and ultimately, this is not altruism, right? Like the better and more useful the tools are to businesses, the more likely they are to stick with Amazon or Google or X, Y, or Z cloud. Is that right? Is that the strategic thinking behind why it's important to offer these very helpful AI tools?
Right. So clearly, Google Cloud is a business. So I think for us, the thinking behind developing AutoML and this kind of technology is really listening to our customers and hearing what they need.
And they need the help because they don't have the talent in-house.
Yeah, hearing their pain point, hearing their need, and recognizing that by doing this, we're enabling them. And it's really quite exciting to wake up every day to think that our technology is really helping businesses to transform.
Can you give an example of perhaps an unexpected application of AI that a business was able to?
Unexpected. So AutoML, my favorite example is London Zoological Society. That this is not a for-profit business. This is an organization that is trying to help wildlife, preserve wildlife, and track wildlife. And they want to use a lot of photos collected from different sources to track different animals like giraffes, zebras, and elephants, and so on. And they become an early alpha user of AutoML Vision, our Vision product, so that they can train their own model, or we can deliver a customized model for them to recognize the zebras and the giraffes and help to track and preserve the wildlife.
Okay, interesting. What I wanted to ask you about we've been talking about democratizing these tools. The other thread of this session is diversity and diversification. So, how worried are you about the lack of diversity in the field of AI and what kind of knock-on consequences that might have, or the sorts of algorithms and systems that are being designed?
So, to be perfectly honest, I am worried. I think I've been in the world of STEM and CS for almost 20 years, and I don't think we have stopped worried about it. The holistic picture of lack of diversity in STEM and CS is global and still an ongoing challenge. And when AI becomes a very very salient and important discipline within CS and STEM, we recognize that the problem of diversity or lack of diversity is very, very pronounced in AI. So I am committed and feel strongly that we need to change that. Why this matters, I feel at least there are 3 reasons we need to care about this. I'm sure there are more. First is actually an economic and labor reason. We know we need more people doing CS, doing AI in the future, now and in the future. Every company is hungry for data scientists, for machine learning experts, for people who understand AI. And I can imagine there are other different kind of tasks and jobs gonna emerge because of the blossoming of AI. And we're lacking that labor force. And if we're lacking that labor force, we should invite more people into this field, into this discipline. So just by growing that talent pie and including a diverse group of people helps that labor market. So that's the first reason I think we care about this. Going deeper, another reason is that innovation itself thrives on diversity. There's studies after studies showing that when a group of more diverse people come together to solve a problem, the solution is likely to be more innovative. And I'm not, the first one who says that. You can read a lot of studies on that. That process might be challenging for the teammates, because when you're diverse, you come with different opinions. But precisely because of that, your solution is much more likely to be innovative, inclusive, and creative. So just for innovation point of view, we don't want to be working in echo chambers of the same kind of thinking. A third reason that I think is deeply, deeply important is fairness and moral, for moral reasons. I've been saying that there are no machine values, independent machine values. Machine values do reflect our human values. And from technologists to business leaders to policymakers, what we do will be reflected, what we think and what we care will be reflected in what we do. So in particular in machine learning, from the moment we define the problem, formulate the problem in the machine learning framework, to the moment we go out and collect or curate the data that will be used to deliver a machine learning model, all the way to how we use that model to do the inference, all these moments are points where our human values are likely to be reflected. We talk a lot about machine learning fairness these days, right? So for example, we're very excited if a machine learning model solves or can recognize, say, a skin cancer. That's just wonderful, because that would help our doctors, help our patients democratize healthcare, or democratize the delivery of healthcare. But what if that skin cancer model is trained on a data set that is abundant with, let's say, affluent, middle-class, patients' data? Well, that means that model will be doing well with that demography. But what about inner city, lower income population? What about different races? So you can see that if we're not careful with the design of the whole pipeline of machine learning, it might be an unintended consequence that our models becomes unfair, and that is a social issue, and that's just one example.
So What I'm going to ask one more question from me because I want the audience to have a chance to ask you questions. There's a private sector race going on to control a large part of the market for selling AI services to companies. There's also a national competition going on, and The Economist put it on its cover this week about the US versus China in tech broadly, but there's in Silicon Valley a long discussion that's been happening about China versus the US in AI, and this goes to your point about data and what's training the algorithms. There do seem to be some advantages that Chinese companies have, including huge amounts of data and potentially less strong views on privacy. And I'm wondering if you could share with us your take on how this will play out. Do you think that in terms of a national race in AI, do you see there being a clear winner in the next, let's say, 2 decades?
So I'm trained as, in my undergraduate year, I was a physics student, and I always think about 21st century AI and compare that 100 years ago, 20th century, early 20th century, the scene of physics, because at that time, modern physics was the most exciting science and technology. I'm probably biased, but at least one of the most exciting science. And I didn't live in that era, and I doubt anybody lived in that era here, but 100 years later, I would ask myself, which company or which country owned physics? And I don't have an answer for that. The reason I want to ask that question for myself, is that I don't believe in borders for science. I think basic knowledge belongs to the whole humanity. And this is partially because I'm a basic science researcher, so, and an educator, and my students come from all over the world. And when they graduate, they will disseminate knowledge to all over the world and through companies or their own teaching. So from that point of view, I don't believe AI belongs to a single company, a single country. I'm not naive, there is a competition, but I genuinely hope that the development of basic science AI is with the recognition that this can be a science and technology that benefit everybody. What we come up with in the lab of University of Washington can become a critical technology that would help, say, patients worldwide, or what we do at Google Cloud through our AutoML can help saving wild animals in Africa. So that is my personal view. In terms of that race, I think we recognize that, and if we can guide and channel the positive and responsible development and usage of AI, I do hope that healthy competition would benefit everybody. That is my personal hope.
Excellent.
Nari Safavi, I do commentary with WBEZ and PR Chicago here. And my question is about these comparative AIs between nations. And earlier, China and Russia were mentioned. And question of values that you bring into the process seem to matter quite a bit. And when you're doing these national comparisons, one thing that you really see is glaringly missing on the US side is the existence of a national strategy. These countries, Russia, China, they all have clear national strategy, clear economic strategy. While in the US, we have corporate strategies. And we only, basically, the assumption has been in this country for the last century or so, what's good for GM is good for America. Now, AI is bringing us face to face with our values, and also maybe possibility of how our values could be reflected within a national strategy. Is something really missing in the dialogue in the US about all of this?
And a national digital strategy, I think, specifically.
So I hear you, and personally I'm not a policy expert on that, but I totally recognize where your question comes from. One thing I think US has done really well, and this is speaking, wearing my hat as a long-term professor in US university, is that we have a national strategy to support some of the world's best research universities and education program, and that has been going on for decades. And because of that, we have university labs that has been long-term leaders in cutting-edge science and technology. AI, in terms of critical players and early pioneers of AI, US absolutely has been a leader in that. Even the very term artificial intelligence was coined by a Stanford professor, John McCarthy, about 60 years ago. So from that point of view, we have a strong national strategy to support basic science research, and you know, both Stanford and other universities like MIT, Berkeley, NYU, UW are all having a very strong emerging strategy of AI machine learning research. So
And a lot of Stanford's research funding comes from the government.
yeah, and exactly. So that is the good news. But do we have a holistic national strategy from basic science research all the way to, you know, entrepreneurship and private sector in AI? You're right, US doesn't. You know, 2 years ago, there was a lot of talk in the previous administration. There has been multiple AI workshops supported by the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. You know, UW, Stanford, CMU, NYU were all part of that. But this should be an ongoing dialogue.